Call the December 21st, 2020 meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners to order and welcome everyone. I see that we have in attendance here this evening. I would like to first welcome Representative Diane Wheatley for being here with us today. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance join me in the prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Lord, our Heavenly Father, it's once again that we come to you with bowed down heads and stretched out arms, Lord, asking for your guidance and asking for you to help us to understand that we are all here together to do the work of the people of this county. Give us the guidance, the strength, and the courage to do what's right for each citizen in Cumberland County. We thank you, we praise you, and we will always honor you. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus Christ our Lord we pray. Amen. Amen. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you get started, Madam Manager, Commissioner Adams has somebody that he would like to recognize.
I think one of our library trustees is here and just wanted to welcome them to our meeting tonight. All right.
And also at this time, I would like to welcome Commissioner Stewart for her first official meeting tonight as a commissioner. Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This brings us to our public comment period. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their concerns with the Board of Commissioners. We allot no more than 15 minutes for the total public comment period. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We ask that each speaker, as they approach the lectern, provide the board with their name and their address. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Ms. Clerk, are there any public comment speakers?
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners, we have one speaker this evening. Our speaker is Mr. Chilico Hurst.
Thank you, Val. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chilico Hurst. My purpose of coming before you is to sound the alarm. It's more or less a public service announcement about the pandemic that is far approaching, that no one is addressing. We presently in this country, the data that I have is compounded by former Attorney General Alberto Gonzalez and former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and also Ms. Lauren Brinkley Robeson at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. If we don't address the issue of prisoners being incarcerated within our jailhouses and our prisons, no matter if those so-called free citizens that are out here in the public right now, all of us become vaccinated, we will have far-reaching issues, and we can never stamp out the problem of the COVID-19. This is an issue no one is addressing in the public. The funds have not been allotted, and this is a problem that is going to need to be addressed because 85% of the individuals that are presently incarcerated, sooner or later will return back to free society. Some of the medical staff and also the prison staff that work in these incarcerated surroundings have also been contaminated with the COVID-19. There has been underreporting concerning the pandemic within the prisons and the jails. Just recently, right here in Cumberland County, it took almost 4.5 months for the sheriff of Cumberland County in its right to allow PPE equipment within the confines of the jailhouse. By then, we had already had members of those in intake, whether it be prisoners and staff, already infected. Presently, within Federal Bureau of Prisons, there have 10,000 prisoners have signed up for compassionate release. Only 2% of the 10,000 have been granted, approximately 156. And we haven't even addressed the issue of our state prisons. If we don't stamp out this issue with those returning back to what we deem free society, we will have a revolving door of illness that would subject the non-suspecting public to the ever-reaching conditions that are ever present in our prisons and our jails. Some states and some states have ceased receiving prisoners from our jailhouses, which have compounded the problem. That's why our jailhouses have become petri dishes during this pandemic.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
sir.
very much for your time. That's the end of my summary.
Thank you so much. All right, Manager Ames, Cannon.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That brings us to item number 1 on the agenda, the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
with the change of 7A, the appointment of the Board of Adjustment, to 6D, to put it back on for nominations tonight, I was notified by the one nominee that he would be unable to serve that, so we didn't want to have to appoint him and then declare a vacancy. I just want to go ahead and move that up to
Let's move it to the next
6D.
agenda, since none of us knew that, and we don't have any
Okay.
appointments.
All right, then just, if I could, just remove 7A and put it on for the next board meeting. And then I move otherwise to approve the agenda.
May I make one
Oh.
change, please?
Okay.
So under item 4A, it is a zoning case P20-52. It's listed as an uncontested case. We have speakers this evening. Is it 4A?
4B, I think.
Yeah, 4A. I think it's P20-52. 43. That one needs to be listed as contested this evening.
I would have gone out there if I had known that, but because it was uncontested, I didn't, I ride
It
by
just
all
became
of it.
contested this evening since we have speakers signed up.
Gotcha.
Okay, so 4A would now, instead of being uncontested, would be a contested.
And now
Zoning.
move to contested since we have speakers that have signed up in opposition this evening.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Chair. Okay, so were there any motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
With-
With
the two
changes. With the
Your
changes.
change and my move of taking the Board of Adjustment one off tonight and re-signing it.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank
That brings us to item number 2 on the agenda. That's our presentation. This evening, we thought it was timely to have Dr. Jennifer Green, our Cumberland County Public Health Director, provide an update to the public on COVID-19. Dr. Green?
Dr. Green, welcome. We didn't recognize you as a visitor because you're here all the time now. We thank you for your service.
Thank you. All right, good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
This information is up to date as of yesterday, so I don't have today's data on the slides as it is just coming in. But in Cumberland County, we have more than 12,000 cases of COVID-19. As you can see, our numbers continue to increase over time. The green shows the number of cases on a daily basis, and then the yellow line is where I want to draw your attention. That's our trend line. So you can see that after the Thanksgiving holiday, there was an increase in cases, and we anticipate that to continue to increase with the upcoming Christmas holiday. This is the state health department county alert system. This is an alert system that is updated every 2 weeks. So it is December the 4th was the last update. So I anticipate that we'll get a new county alert system tomorrow or soon thereafter. But this graphic shows the number or the alert system for each county in North Carolina, and the colors indicate the amount of community spread there is. So in Cumberland County, we are substantial or an orange tier, and these metrics are based off of our case positivity rate, the percentage of tests that come back positive, as well as our hospital impact score, as well as the number of cases per population size that we have. So I anticipate that with the new county alert system, we may move to red because of our case positivity rate. So we will have to see what that looks like when that new information gets released, but I just do want to make you aware of that. And you'll see why I'm anticipating that in just a slide or two. So in the last 7 days, again, this does not include today's data, but in the last 7 days, we've had 1,300 cases, more than 1,300 cases of COVID-19, and in the last 14 days, we've had 2,292 cases. So if you do the math, that means we've had more cases in the most recent 7 days than in the previous 14 days. On average, we have 166.9 cases in a day, which is still far, far, far too many cases. It is outstripping our ability to contact trace on a regular basis. We cannot manage that number of cases in a day. On our daily average of cases per population size is about 50 cases per population size each day. And then our case positivity rate, I'm sorry, I missed that here, is this morning was at 13.2%. So if we go back to the county alert system, you move to red when you have a case positivity rate, a 2-week average that is above 10%. So in the last week, we've been above 10%. So if we do the math, I'm anticipating we move to red, but we'll know for sure tomorrow or the day after when the alert system gets updated. This number shows the amount of testing that we're doing. So on a week-by-week basis, again, our target is to test at least 5% of our population every week, which equates to about 4,200 tests every week. And we have been hitting that target for the last several months. You can see that we've had some highs. The week before Thanksgiving, we really hit a high. We had more than 8,000 tests that week. The last 2 weeks, we've done more than 6,000, more than 7,000 tests each week. So we're meeting the metrics of the number of tests. We just have too much community spread. 134 members of our community have passed away. Majority of those above age 65, male, majority African American. Most but not all have been hospitalized. And again, most but not all have had some underlying condition. And 43% of those were in some congregate living setting. Okay, so a couple of COVID vaccine updates. So I won't read this slide to you, but this slide just provides an overview of the 2 types of vaccine that we have. We have the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine. Both are close to 95% effective. The key differences are that the Pfizer vaccine has to be that ultra cold storage that you've been hearing about. That means it has to be frozen. It can be in the refrigerator for a very short amount of time. There's a very short shelf life, meaning when we get it in, we have to get it off our shelves very quickly. Moderna has a little bit more flexibility, but it still has some temperature ranges that we have to meet in order to store it. Both are 2-dose vaccine schedules. Pfizer is 21 days apart, Moderna is 28 days apart, and they both use the sort of same type of technology to make the vaccine work. No major safety concerns in any of the vaccine trials thus far, and I'll note that the CDC, in addition to their normal reporting for adverse events for vaccinations, has built in a new system, a new smartphone app called vSafe, that every person that gets vaccinated gets access to, so that they can track vaccination events after somebody gets vaccinated. Both now, as of last week, as of over the weekend, have approval from, and I should say approval carefully, have an emergency use authorization from the FDA, which was then approved by the CDC. So both of those are in place now, and shipment of the Pfizer began last week, and Moderna began this week. Today, we received our first shipment of the Moderna vaccine, so that is exciting. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we're going to roll that out. So just a couple of slides. We hear a lot about, is it a safe vaccine? It's safe and effective. It's important to remember that the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, we really had a head start on this, right? Because the vaccine was developed about a coronavirus, and COVID is part of a family of coronaviruses, not just a new and novel coronavirus. So they really had a head start in developing this vaccine. We get a lot of questions about if there's live coronavirus in the vaccine, and there is not. And again, no major side effects, and we'll do that intensive monitoring afterwards. So you may have seen this slide from the State Health Department in terms of who gets vaccinated first. I'm going to just pause here for a minute and let you look. I'm going to jump into the details here. But phase 1A are our healthcare workers that are specifically fighting for COVID, those that are doing the vaccinating, and those in our long-term care facilities. The phase 2, 3, 4, and 5, based on the advisory committee to the CDC, is getting tweaked a little bit. In the next is getting tweaked at the State Health Department now, based on some new recommendations from the CDC. So once we get more details about that, we'll be rolling that out as well. But we knew that all along, that this might get tweaked just a little bit. But those additional phases after this first phase 1 is going to get tweaked. And really phase 1 is actually phase 1A and phase 1B, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So the hospital and local health departments are getting vaccine first. So you heard me say the hospital got Pfizer last week, and then and the health department got our Moderna vaccine this week as well. Our other healthcare providers and pharmacies will be enrolled later. So the enrollment for example, our federally qualified health centers is starting after the new year. Although they may not receive vaccine right away. It's going to depend on the supply. So they're going to go ahead and enroll them as providers, and then they can start receiving vaccine later as supply gets larger. There's a partnership between CVS and Walgreens you may have heard about, and they will take care of vaccinating the long-term care facilities, with a little caveat on there that I'll tell you about in just a minute. And so that's really some of the preparation work that we've been doing. The allocations are done on a week-by-week basis. So I don't yet know, for example, what we're getting next week. It certainly is a challenge for planning, but it is done on a week-by-week basis. So usually a couple of days in advance, we know this is coming and this is what we're going to get. But we try to do that in coordination with the hospital, make sure that we're vaccinating together and collaborating and not duplicating our efforts. So in terms of what happens beyond, we're in week 2 right now. Beyond what happens beyond week 3, beyond this week, is we'll continue to get those doses on a weekly basis. The CDC or the manufacturers are holding what we call our second dose. So they're allocating on a week-by-week basis. When it comes time for that second dose, if you've already been vaccinated, they're holding your second dose essentially for you at the manufacturer. So we'll always have more vaccine coming in and taking into account those that have already been vaccinated and need that second dose. So a couple of things that are really critical to the work that we're doing right now at the health department. The state health department has developed, specifically for COVID, a new COVID-19 vaccine management system. You'll hear us call it CVMS, and it is an electronic system that we have to use in order to vaccinate the public. The hospital is using it, we're using it. Every provider that will be using and administering COVID vaccine will be in this system. So we got access to that system over the weekend. So we're rapidly getting our staff trained. We had some training opportunities last week to get make sure that our staff are ready to be in the system. It's a really fairly simple system to use. We just have to be able to access it and get into it. So we're doing that now. Most of our staff have access now. And then all along for the last several months, we've been having meetings with the hospital, with our first responders, with Fort Bragg, to make sure, again, that we're not duplicating efforts, but that we're working together in collaboration. There's a couple of sort of logistic pieces that we're still working on, and again, making sure that we're preparing that communication to the public. PIO has been great, and they've helped us to launch a website that's live now so that people can go and get some basic information. I want to hone in real quickly on the Phase 1A. So I'm going to jump back just a slide or two. So Phase 1A is our healthcare workers that are directly working with COVID patients, our doctors, our nurses, those that clean the buildings that are serving direct COVID patients. So that includes many of our hospital staff, but it also includes those that are doing, and our public health staff, but it also includes those that are doing COVID testing in our long-term care facilities, both staff and residents. So we have reached out to all of our EMTs through the fire departments, our funeral homes who deal with or handle COVID-19 patients that have deceased, and all of, or most of our COVID-19 providers that are doing regular, more than just sort of a one-off COVID-19 testing to get them enrolled as well. The enrollment requires us to get their information and upload them into the new CVMS system. So that's the process that we're working on this week. And then we also will begin outreach to our home health agencies this week. The way we will roll this out for those individuals that are in Phase 1A are to do what we call closed pods, closed point of dispensing sites. That means they're not open to the general public because, again, you have to meet that criteria in order to be enrolled. And so they will be closed pods, closed point of dispensing sites for those Phase 1A agencies, and that will be for the first several weeks. It's going to take us several weeks to get to all of those locations. I mentioned that there's a federal partnership with CVS and Walgreens to vaccinate our long-term care facilities. We have several long-term care facilities that did not enroll in that program, so we are responsible for vaccinating them as well. So that's going to be the heavy lift for us in the first couple of weeks, is to make sure that those long-term care facilities that were not enrolled are vaccinated by the health department and or the hospital. So that involves us going to those long-term care facilities as well as setting up closed point of dispensing sites for those agencies. So we get a lot of questions, especially today, about our outpatient providers. So this is from the State Health Department website, and in general, those that are doing outpatient providers, they're healthcare workers, but they're not necessarily in Phase 1A because we're really, again, trying to target those that are directly caring for COVID patients, are testing for COVID, or are doing or are caring for the decedents. So we want to make sure that we get those taken care of first. Our outpatient providers are going to be in a later phase. So unless they are doing regular interactions with COVID patients, we want to get them vaccinated, but we just need, we are going to get to them as quickly as we can and as efficiently as we can, but they have to meet the criteria for that kind of direct patient interaction. So we've been working with the hospital. We had a meeting with them today to make sure that, again, we're covering all of those providers, but we're not duplicating our efforts. So I will pause there and see what questions there were. That was a lot of information at once.
Are there any questions from the board? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just have
Commissioner
one on
Booth.
it was about a slide back, outreach to Phase 1A
Yes.
agencies. I see the EMTs, long-term care, COVID test sites, funeral homes. Who made the list? Is this a federal pass down or a state pass down, or?
So the State Health Department provided us a list of all of the medical examiners, the funeral homes in our county, and they provided us that list, and then we went back through and made sure our list matched theirs, and then we sent them an email and said, please make sure you give us all the names of your employees that meet that criteria, and we will get them registered in the CVMS system for vaccination. So that's what our staff are doing as we speak, making sure that they're ready to go in that system.
Okay, that's when I see that they ought to be in there somewhere, but I would, you're not allowed or not supposed to go to funerals. If you go in there on any given day, unless you're going in there to talk to somebody about a service, it's empty. So I would hope that like educators or food service personnel and something like that would kind of bump out, emphasizing funeral home
Well,
vaccinations.
they're in there because they care for the bodies of patients that are deceased that had COVID. And so we still know that there's a possibility of infection because they have that direct, very close contact with those individuals that have passed away. So that's why the advisory committee from the CDC prioritized them in the phase 1A.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Green, and really appreciate staying on top of this. This has been a surge, and I think that with the holidays coming up, there's an expectation that it will continue to be there. It is very exciting that the vaccine is coming out, and right now I think everybody understands the need to get it out to the first responders and people who are working with COVID. I'm really getting concerned about that third and fourth phase when people are going to be wanting it. I have two questions. One is, are citizens going to be required to show a negative test before they get the vaccine?
Not a negative test. So if you are under isolation or quarantine orders, we want you to finish out that quarantine or isolation before you come to the test site. So we don't want you to have COVID actively and then come to the test site. But they are not required to have a negative COVID test result to get vaccinated.
And I think the other one would be is everybody understands people involved in it are the first ones, but when they start rolling out to the general public, is that going to be an application process after we take care of the individuals who we're working with? And will everybody be coming to the health department, or will they be at other sites?
We will have them off-site, so that's our plan right now. We don't anticipate that we will be able to accommodate people in the health department. I think we'd blow the fire capacity probably right away. So after we sort of do these closed point of dispensing sites, we will have them in an off-site location. What we anticipate is that people in the CVMS system will be able to make an appointment or be able to enroll on their own. As I said, it's a brand new system from the State Health Department, so they are quickly working to kind of make sure that we are doing that for people in phase 2, 3, 4 down the road, and a process to get them enrolled. Right now, the state has really been focused on those phase 1A people, but there will be a public process for them that are not in phase 1A and phase 1B to get them enrolled, whether it's a link on our website or a place to register. There are a questionnaire that individuals have to complete to make sure we get their background information, names, phone numbers, date of birth, that kind of information.
But we're looking at probably early springtime?
Yes.
Okay. And one final, one of your statistics showed a very large percentage of men in the death rate. Is that consistent, or are we an outlier here in Cumberland County?
No, we are not an outlier. I think that's fairly consistent. Interestingly enough, the cases are fairly 50-50%.
The cases.
The cases, but the deaths tend to be higher among men. So some of the thinking is men are more at risk because of their underlying conditions, but that's across the board. That's not just an outlier in Cumberland County.
So does that make it even worse as an African-American male is at the top of that, and then it goes down from there?
So African-American men, let me see if I can go back to our death slide. African-American males in particular are high, and I could try to get a further breakdown there, and then particularly African-American men with comorbidities or those that were in congregate living settings as well.
Okay, thank you very much, and I appreciate all the work you're doing.
Absolutely.
Are there any more?
Yeah, I had one.
Yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner Adams.
And I love all the talk about the vaccine, but mine is back because the vaccine is down the road for a lot of folk. And I saw the slide that after Thanksgiving, we had a high trajectory. And I think it's incumbent upon us, and as we talk to you, that Christmas is coming. And people are flying into Cumberland County. They're coming home. Kids are coming home. That we could have another surge shortly after Christmas. We're just feeling we haven't even felt all of the Thanksgiving surge yet.
Yes.
But we're going to have a surge probably after Christmas, because, and I think that it's incumbent upon us, because as we talk about this vaccine, people start letting their guard down, believing that this vaccine is coming. And I think it's important that we stress, because whether we go to a lockdown or something from the state, that we've got to be vigilant during this holiday season, because it's just it could be worse. And I just want to reiterate to the citizens of this community, those that are watching, those that are here, that we still have to be vigilant on this thing. And I think that's kind of one of the concerns of, I heard Dr. Fleshman at the Health Department talk about, and I did see that in the hospital it went down from like 86 to 79 in the last day or two, but that can skyrocket and we could have that issue. So I think it's important for us to speak about that.
Absolutely, and I apologize for not having a slide on that, but you're 100% correct. We saw the surge after Thanksgiving. Now we're several weeks out, so I think now we're seeing the secondary cases that are coming from Thanksgiving. We fully anticipate that we will have more cases after Christmas. We know that, I feel like a broken record, and we know that it is a big ask to ask people to not travel, especially when they've been not traveling all year. But this is the time that we have to come together as a community to not travel. We have to stay home, celebrate within your household. If you're not in your household, keep that gathering small. We saw it repeatedly after Thanksgiving. It's hard to do because you want to go to grandma's house or aunt's house or your cousin's house when you haven't done that all year. But we saw the increase of cases that happened right after Thanksgiving. So we really need people to stay home. And if you're not going to stay home, keep that gathering very small. If you make sure that people get tested. Now, what is today? We are a couple days out from Christmas. So if you have not been tested and you are traveling, we need you to go get tested. Do not travel if you are sick, or do not travel if you have tested positive, certainly. Anybody sick, runny nose, cough, fever, I just don't feel good. We hear a lot of that. Well, I just thought I just didn't feel good. I felt tired. And do not travel in any of those circumstances. And then after you come back, monitor for symptoms. And if you are feeling ill, notify others around you and then go get tested as well. So we really, it's a big, big ask, and I know people are tired, and we're tired too, frankly, but we just need people to help us out on this one, help our hospital stuff out, help our health department stuff out on this particular holiday.
And I guess as we do that, it's the 3 W's.
3 W's.
The 3 W's.
Yes.
You remind us of the 3 W's, because I think it's important that we continue to understand that.
Yes, wear your mask. It is an odd thing to wear your mask with your grandma, but please wear your mask, because those are are individuals that are the highest risk, and that if all the people in the facility are wearing a mask, that really helps us. So wearing your mask, practice social distancing, stay 6 feet apart. I've seen some really creative ideas about how to distance people, and then wash your hands, have your hand sanitizer handy. Those are all things that we need to keep doing.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Dr. Green? Anything else, Dr. Green?
No, thank you all for your time, and thank you for your ongoing support of the health department.
Dr. Green, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it so much. Consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, if there's no items to be removed, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I want to apologize, but there is a labeling issue on the agenda under public hearings under item 4A. In Novus, the item has been entered as item case P20-52. On the written agenda, it's listed as case P20-43. I apologize for any confusion, but the first item, 4A, is an uncontested case, case P20-52. I'll ask Ross Howard to come and present the item.
Thank you, Madam Manager.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Close this out real quick. Just real quickly. So the first item on the uncontested, actually the only item on the uncontested this evening is case P20-52. As Ms. Cannon stated, this case literally sits on the eastern fringe of the city of Fayetteville, just right off of Highway 24, as you can see by the stars, pretty much geographically center located in the county. The applicant owner is Jonathan Darrell Edwards Jr. on behalf of ND4 200 LLC. This is just a pretty straightforward request to go from RR to MP, which is our industrial zoning. So you can see highlighted here, all of the areas that are pretty much zoned MP right now are here. You can see a little bit here. But I think the coloration should give you a little bit better view of actually what's on the ground before I unless you want to go too much further into the presentation. So there's Edward Crane Service is located right here. The site in question is right here. The idea is they want to expand back into the back. It is on the plans, it calls for it to be industrial. Staff has recommended it, and when it went to the planning board, it got a unanimous vote to agree with that. So if you want me to go into further detail, I can certainly do that if you wish.
Yes, please.
Further detail?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, no problem. So, as I stated, you can see generally the land uses that are all around here. Pretty much a commercial and industrial area. Again, Edwards Cranes, I also believe, own this site here as well too. And they're trying to option that site right there to the rear that's under discussion for today. Right now it's zoned RR, but you can see the general zoning of MP and the coloration here in purple. This is the Crane Service here. This is the expansion of their site over here, and this is what they're proposing right here. You can see the city of Fayetteville city boundaries, but you can, and then of course you got Highway 24 that sits down here to the south of the site. So when you look at the soils, you do have hydric soils, but you do have PWC water, which comes off the road here, which is accessible to Edwards Crane. There is sewer that's out here on NC 24. As I stated before, the plans do call for this to be industrial, so staff said it was plan compliant, so we based our recommendation off that accordingly. It allows a wide variety of industrial operations involving manufacturing, processing, and fabrication. Sorry. When you look at the subject site, this is standing on the road, Angelia M Street. As you can see, as you're standing on the road looking back into the property, due to the fact that it is sort of geographically limited, there's not any really direct access to this particular parcel in question. The parcel is sitting back in the back here, behind what you see in the front. This is looking back to the industrial operations you see at the end of the street. This is standing where Edwards Crane pretty much sits over here. This is the parking lot here, that you can see that you're looking right across the street. I'm sorry, like you're staring across the street. You're standing in the parking lot of Edwards Crane, which Edwards Cranes is immediately on the right in this photo, and you can see that we did post the sign in accordance with state statutes. So staff have recommended approval of the request, and the planning board also supported staff's recommendation by a 9-0 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Mm-hmm.
You want to open the public hearing? Madam Clerk, there's no speakers.
There are no speakers.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the rezoning,
Is there a second?
and I'll be happy to read that for you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll do that, Mr. Chair. In the case of P20-52, I move to approve the rezoning request from RR Rural Residential to MP Planned Industrial and find that the request consistent with the Eastover Land Plan use of 2018. The designation of industrial as it allows for a wide variety of industrial operations involving manufacturing, processing, fabrication, and distribution of all permitted uses in the MP district. Approval of this request is reasonable and in the public interest as the district requested is in harmony with the surrounding existing land uses and zoning. That's my motion.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, item 4B is the contested case, which is case P20-43.
Much, Ms. Cannon. So This case sits in the Grace Creek area that you can see in the southwestern area of the county, as you can see heading towards the William County line. The applicant is Kyle Dixon, and the agent is Mr. Tim Evans, who is with us this evening. The request is to go from A1 agricultural to R40 conditional zoning for about 20 acres, as you can see located on Butler Nursery Road. It's highlighted here in this red crosshatch that is surrounded in general by, you can see, by RR A1, which is the bulk of this area that you see to the south and then to the northeast. And then you have R48 across the street and then R6A. So for the most part, the bulk of all this area is some form of residential area. So when you look as well, you can see there's a private airport that sits just across the street from the entrance of this future subdivision, which I'll get into some of the specifics of the discussion that we had at the planning board here in just a minute regarding that. We have a mobile home park that sits here, but for the most part, you're seeing a lot of farmland and you're seeing single-family residential with some manufactured home sites pretty much surrounding all of this here. The reason why you have the private airport in blue is because it was cut off by the crosshatch for the mailing area, but the actual land itself for the airport, as you can see, is pretty expansive. It goes back into this area back in here. This is just a simple zoning map with coloration to help you just understand exactly what the zoning is for this area. As I stated before, it's all A1 zoning out here. And you can see R40A sitting right here at the entrance with RR sitting right where the operational component of the airport sits. So as I said before, this is in the Grace Creek Water District, or it's in the Grace Creek area, but it also sits in the Water District as well. There is no water and sewer out here, so any homes that get built out here will have to have well and septic. When we look at the plan of staff, it designates this as farmland, which we believe the request is compliant. The proposed zoning district is at least going to be 1 unit per acre on tracts greater than 10 acres, only stick-built homes. There was a component about public water and sewer, but I think that overall, when we looked at the general intent of what the policies were for the area, staff still supported it, and we felt, and plus it's a conditional zoning, so staff felt comfortable with their recommendation to move forward with the request. Here's a site plan, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of background briefly, unless you just want to get into some more specifics. As you can see, it's just a pretty simple housing subdivision that comes off of Butler Nursery Road here, curving around here with 2 cul-de-sacs. You can see it's roughly about 20 lots. There was some discussion, which I'm sure you'll hear when we start having the proponents and the opponents come up here and start to talk about it, is this area that's right in here. If you go back, there was a lot of discussion dealing with the runway area that you can see coming off of right here about any homes that get built in this little panhandle portion that you see here. So originally when the request came in, it came in as a standard conventional zoning, so it was not conditional. There was a lot of discussion at planning board, which I think was very productive conversation. So as a part of that, there was a desire with a lot of data presented by folks who came about about what to do with the panhandle piece or how it should be controlled in the case of emergency landings out here on this piece of property. And these are the folks from the airport that are speaking. I should clarify that. So the applicant went back, got with staff, resubmitted it as a conditional zoning request, which as a part of the ordinance, it is required to have a site plan submitted to it. The applicant did very much limit this area by increasing the setback to 100 feet in the rear here that you can see. That is a pretty wide setback for any type of residential lot. Also putting the required open space or any of that up in this area as well too. So essentially just limiting this area to 1 home for this particular portion of the property. When we had discussions during the conditional zoning hearing that I think there were some further concerns about further development back in here, and then I think that, and I don't mean to speak on behalf of the chairman who was here today, but I think the discussion was that that the applicant did go back and tailor their plans down with what the request was at the first hearing, brought back a very compromised request, and so the planning board then felt comfortable enough to recommend staff's recommendation moving forward. Any questions on that before I move forward? I want to make sure you guys are clear on that before I go. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Just that little upper,
This area
very,
right here?
very upper right-hand corner.
Correct.
Yeah. Now, what can be on there? Even though residents can't be on it, but could you have carports, barns? I mean, what can't, you said they restricted what can be used on there, but what can't?
Just basically like anything that would go with any single-family home. So you could have a detached garage, you could have a carport, anything that would be subject to the zoning ordinance for any other home.
So you just would not have likelihood of human life sleeping or something like that?
You wouldn't have 2 or 3 homes there.
Okay.
I think the idea is they wanted to boil it down to the simplest as they can get, so they only limited to 1 home.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
But he wasn't finished, right?
Right.
Are you finished?
No, I'm not finished. I just want to make sure before I move forward.
No,
with
I was
any
just
stuff.
asking if there was any other questions, because he said he wasn't any questions.
Okay. So this is the subject property. This is off of Butler Nursery Road. As you're looking back, as you can see, it's current dirt road there, but you can see it's pretty extensive going back into the woods. This is the subject property itself. We believe there's a former home that was on the site that's been demolished. You can see the remnants of a foundation still sitting there. Again, this is sitting on the subject property. There are accessory buildings, so getting back to your question, Commissioner, yes, so common accessory buildings that would go along with a single-family home would be allowed as per this request. Still sitting on the subject property. We're just taking pictures basically of all the accessories that are still remaining out there. This is on Butler Nursery, looking west. Now, this is sitting right across the street, all right? So just to let you know that this is sitting on the panhandle portion of the lot, and you can see basically the operations of the airport sitting here. The runway, I believe, is just sitting off of here to the right of this building out in this area here. This is looking east with the subject property and the driveway immediately on your right. You can see the zoning sign that we posted per state statute. Staff had recommended approval. When it went to the board, it did get a favorable request. And so we're here this evening to answer any questions about it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have just a couple of questions for him before we go to the public hearing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Adams.
The one thing I didn't understand is, at the planning board, there were some people who spoke in opposition to this. I don't understand how this get to be uncontested to us if there were people in opposition. I understand that both the planning board and the staff recommended unanimous approval, but if there was some opposition, then it doesn't seem to be uncontested to me. I don't understand how it got here to be uncontested. That would be my first question.
Yeah, so yes, certainly, and that's a good question. So when we were talking with staff, I think it's just a matter of just being conservative at the time of the board. So if we come here, for example, there have been some cases where we've shown up where it could be contested where nobody shows up. All of the issues were handled at the planning board, so nobody will show up, but we would go through the presentation for what would otherwise be an uncontested case. So, I mean, like if people showed up and spoke at the planning board, but nobody showed up here at this hearing itself, I guess it'd be up to the board whether or not you would want to consider that as a contested case, and we can certainly move forward in that way. If you'd like.
To me, if somebody speaks in opposition at the planning board, it ought to be contested here. Now, if they get here and there's nobody in opposition, you may be able to move it to an uncontested, but I just don't.
Certainly.
It just doesn't make sense to me if I had some people in opposition that it gets to be an uncontested. That doesn't have anything to do with this part.
Yeah.
The other issue I have is, this is in the Grays Creek area.
Correct.
And this is in the area with the Comores and all of the issues that we already have out there. Is that correct? And
Okay.
is that correct?
I think there are issues out there. Yes, sir. There's no doubt about that.
And even in this area right here that they're talking about building these homes, so that, I mean, I get emails every day from people who said, I bought a house out here, I didn't know that I was in this Comores district and I have to have all this water delivered to me. Is that, I mean, that just gives me some serious concerns of putting a whole nother development out there in an area that's supposed to be contaminated. Is that, I didn't see anything in the planning staff or the planning board that even talked about that or addressed that. So was that an issue that was brought up?
We have had multiple discussions about that, Commissioner, not just about this case, but cases in the past. I think that what we run into with staff is that there hasn't been really a defined map of where any contamination really, I mean, it's this very nebulous concept of where it is or may not be within the ground. I know they've done extensive testing out there, but I think that absent anything concrete that we can look at, I think that what we're doing is looking at the plans themselves. And I've just instructed staff to stick with the land use policies. I think if it's an issue with you as the commissioners at this point, I guess where I'm getting at, commissioners, I don't think staff has anything concrete we can fall back on to be able to tell an applicant no, we can't go with that particular type of decision just because there may or may not be something in the ground. I think
And I'm
that's
not
where we're
telling you to
coming
do
from
that, but I think it is helpful to us if we're talking about this Grays Creek area. Is that in that defined area already that's been defined or not? I mean, there was nothing in any of this discussion that talked about that. And I think this is, in terms of Butler Nursery Road, is within that confine. I think you just look at the map that's already been set out by the county, Comores, and the state.
Right.
To say this falls in that. I mean, I'm not saying that you deny it because of that.
Certainly.
But I do think that that's information that ought to be brought to us, so I don't have to guess, because I didn't get to ride out there because it wasn't contested,
Right.
as to whether this is in that area or not, which then gives me a little bit in terms of how I vote or may not vote, adding 20 more houses into a contaminated site. But thank you. I mean, I understand.
If that's something that you would like to put into the staff reports, that's not a problem. We can certainly do that.
I would, if any, especially down in that area, I would like to know that.
Sure.
Because I think it's important.
Okay.
Because when
Not a
we
problem.
get out there and start calling, they
Okay.
call us.
I got you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Any more questions? Open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
Chairman and Commissioners, we have 2 speakers in favor and 4 speakers in opposition.
Okay. Let's have-
Our first speaker in favor is Mr. Tim Evans.
Good evening, folks. My name is Tim Evans, and I reside at 3187 Gainey Road. I've lived in Grays Creek since 1986. Mr. Adams, if I could, without my time being affected, could I address you on the water?
You have to talk to
Could
the
I
chairman.
address
That's
the
that
bill on
ability.
the water?
No, sir, we need you to make your presentation.
Okay, fine, but I would like the chance to tell you about some waters. Okay. When we started this, we did have opposition, and I think I would like to mention Scott Smith, who's involved with the airport. They had concerns about the little adjacent piece to our right. You see the little sliver there to our right about tall trees being in the line of the runway, and they're not on our property. And then we had the concerns about the little field in the back, but the little field up front, I think you had asked about other buildings. They couldn't be in that 100-foot setback that you had asked back. We have a very small envelope where we can put a house if they would go back to that. But we have had some opposition, and on the lots that would border Butler Nursery Road, Mr. Pate is not with us tonight. He was in opposition. I've met with him after the meeting to ensure him that we would leave a buffer, a nice wooded buffer. We have got some trees on this 20 acres, as you can see in the upper north corridor, where you see the R40A. We have houses all through there. We have agreed to leave a 100-foot buffer there of trees for erosion problems. And first and foremost, as a broker and a little bit developer, we have to disclose to anybody that buys in there that there's an airport pertaining to the Air Ranch at Eastover. Look at that situation there. So one thing I did, I was concerned about the airport's thing, so I invited a pilot from Delta, flies international. He's just moved to Grays Creek. Him and his wife are with us tonight. I asked him to look at that situation and to give an honest opinion from being a professional that he is. And my last question to him was this. I said, Ken, I have a question for you. He met Mr. Smith outside tonight. I said, would you buy a home in that subdivision? He said, absolutely, without a doubt. Okay, we can put 10 houses in there now. We're asking for 20. With the cost of the development these days with roads, we have to get 20 in there to make it work. But our concerns now, we are going with deeper wells, Mr. Adams, in Grays Creek. And today, by going 100-foot plus, we're at almost 100% because what we're dealing with is airborne. So we have got some issues in Grays Creek, but we feel like we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
Our next speaker in favor is Mr. Kenneth Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Kenneth Ray, and I have a home in Edgewood Farms West, which is about a mile west of the property in question here. Mr. Evans is my real estate agent with Longleaf Properties, and I'm a retired naval aviator and an active airline pilot for 5.5 years with Delta, which is why I believe he asked me to go over there and observe and give my opinion. I went over and looked at the property today with him, as well as observed some flight operations there. I believe, and I'm sure the opposition will speak to this, the concern is obviously properties being built off of the departure end of one of their runways there and the potential, accident that could happen and liabilities and so forth. The biggest concern that I saw was the tall trees that Mr. Evans mentioned directly off the departure end of the runway. Again, that doesn't lie on the property that's been questioned here, so that's not anything that Mr. Evans can do anything about at this time. But if the concern is after takeoff, which is a critical phase of flight, if you were to have a power loss, your options become limited. You're going to land it whether you want to or not, and the matter is landing it in a spot that you're going to limit damage to yourself and other property. So with those tall trees in there, that's going to tend to force you to want to go right or left. Right being the property that we're talking about in question there, and left, obviously, that farmland where A1 south of Butler Nursery Road is. The better option is obviously A1 or to the left. In my opinion, I'm sure there may be some more opinions on that, but that's basically what I observed today. Other than that, I'm just here to answer any questions mainly as a pilot. That's all I have to say at this point. Unless there's questions for me.
Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Our first speaker in opposition is Mr. Jack Kane.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir.
Jack Kane, I was born and raised on that piece of farm right there. 84 years ago, my daddy bought that land. I've been there for 74 years. And on that same piece of land that juts way down to the back, it used to erosion real bad. And the county put out a program to put out coastal area and let the land lay out for that erosion control. And now it does not have it because my brother put a hay field there, and my nephew put a pine thicket the other end of it. It does not exist right now, but it used to be a real bad problem. It would about turn a tobacco harvest road when it run across the end of it. And I don't know what they're going to do with this water. If they put streets in there, they got a lagoon somewhere to put it in, I don't know. Or it's going to be on the Baker land, the far end of it. And also at the other end, it goes across the highway sometimes, all the way across. The little jet south goes out there in the trailer park. It does flood it. I don't know what kind of water program they got set up to take care of this. Maybe they have it, and I certainly hope so. Because we don't have no water. I've been drinking out of a plastic jug for 2 years. We have infected water right there on both sides of it. I don't see why anybody buy a lot there anyway, but whatever, I wouldn't. I don't think you would either. Sure you, Jim, think about these airplanes coming in here, plus contamination. And I don't know what's going to do with the water. Has he got a plan for this water that goes to the highway? And if it developed this, it may cause the same problem I had 60 years ago. Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kay.
Any further questions?
Our second speaker in opposition is Ray Kane.
Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. One of my, about the biggest concern is the landowners. Everybody that has land that joins that, nobody wants it. Does the landowners that pays these taxes every year don't have any say about what somebody comes in from another community, buys farmland in my community next to me, sells the lots and leaves? They're gone. I have to live there. My family, I'm the there's 5 generations on that. My grandkids are the 5th generations on that piece of land. That was my uncle that was just spoke. And you were talking about the Gen X water. That's the heart of the Gen X where I'm at. Everybody around me has it. Everybody around me has it for 5 miles out. My water tested something like, I believe the state says you can have like 140. Mine tested something like 240. My sister's here is, I think Jackson's more than mine. I think his was something like 300. Yes, they bring water to us every 2 weeks. We don't have, like I say, we got poison water to drink out of the ground except what they bring to us. We don't have any sewer out there. When I was a teenager, I heard they were going to send water and sewer to Grays Creek. That's been 50 years ago.
Don't get Commissioner Council started.
And these airplanes, I live across the road at the end of the runway. That's my house right there. That dark. Those planes, I can see the pilots when they come over my house. And for them to put a housing development in there, and you're laying in bed at 1 o'clock at night and the airplane comes over your house at 100 feet and you stick to the ceiling like a cat, I just can't see them putting a housing development in there. But, you know, my biggest thing is none of the landowners around it wants it. Everybody pays their taxes, and it's something that we're gonna be left with after they done sold it and gone. That and the water issue and the airport, so that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our third individual in opposition is Scott Smith.
Hello, how are you?
Okay, hope you're doing well, sir.
I'm Scott Smith. I'm the owner of the flight school at the airport there in Grays Creek. I'm the owner of a maintenance facility. And my father, he started this in 1984. This is something he started. He made it a privately owned public use airport. So essentially, anyone can come and go whenever they want, however they please, without prior approval or anything else. So without going into this, I just want to make it clear that I'm not against development. I'm not against homes being built. I understand that property values are going to increase. It's going to benefit us. People that move in are going to learn to fly, so I'll make a little money there. But this isn't about financials for me. For me, it just scares me because of the critical phase of flight that's going on. If you look at the Highway 87, there's a downwind leg, a base leg, and a final leg that turns in, and it's going to wrap right around this subdivision every time. We have, FAA sets aside a generic protected area, a protected area to land. And it's basically a cone shape that gets narrower and narrower as it goes to the end of the runway. 90% of that is encompassed by the trees that are there. So we, even though we've got a nice cone that the FAA designates, they're not accounting for the trees at the end of the runway, and we're privately owned, so we just can't take the land across the street, clear it so that there's a safe spot for aircraft. So what we have now, like the gentleman said before, is just to the left, just to the right. We have 2 choices. We've always instructed everyone to go to the right for 2 reasons. One big reason. To the left, you can see there's a tree line. It's kind of hard to tell without a pointer, but there's a tree line with mature trees at the end. On the right side here, they're juvenile trees. So if you lost an engine after takeoff above the trees, you've got to go left or right. We tell them to go to, as we're looking at it, it's going to be on the left side, the property in question, because of the juvenile trees at the end. It's just a safety thing. It's what we've always instructed up until this point that we have what's going on now. The FAA, they do a risk assessment at airports. City-owned, county-owned, that happens all the time. And what they do is they give you areas within the airport that's more or less dangerous. I promise you it would encompass this. I just don't have the means. I've sent emails. I've talked to people. I'm not even sure how to get that started. And it would definitely take a whole lot more time than what it did from the first meeting to now. I mean, it'd probably be a year-long process. With all that being said, it's just about safety for me. I hope it never comes to it. I've seen bad things. We've gone through some things, and we do our best to keep everything safe, but we're teaching people to fly. There's people with 8 to 10 hours of flight time in an airplane by themselves going over those houses. It scares me to think there's going to be houses around, and I can't stop it, and I understand that. This one in particular is right there in a scary place. I mean, it's just a bad place to be. It worries me, it concerns me, and of course, my brain goes to liability. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Our final speaker this evening in opposition is Carla Giles.
Hi, Commissioner, everyone.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am actually the one person that is right here in this corner here with the road going in. I can't explain.
Yeah, she got the-
This is me here in this little block right here below the blue. I've been over there for about 25 years, and it has always been really quiet and peaceful. I just can't imagine 20 houses coming in on such a small lot and just have so many people jammed up. When I first moved over there, everything was really kind of quiet and peaceful over there. They have been building so many houses out here in the country where we're at that a lot of the actually animals, which no one would really listen kind of on the last thing, a lot of the animals have come to that lot. We have a lot of deer over there. We actually have a bear that lives there, but nobody cares. And I know the last meeting I got upset, but I just can't imagine 20 wells, 20 sewage tanks. And the water, what they were talking about in the front there, it gets so deep when there's a major rain, it's like an ocean. I'm glad I have a SUV because going through it is just unreal. And when we have any kind of hurricanes, you have a leg. I couldn't even get to work because I couldn't even get out to get on the road. It was all the way across the road, and where those houses are he's talking about, the water will be unreal up in the front part there. I can already tell you that. I've been there for 25 years. But I just, to me, it just really kills me to think that I can understand a few houses and the people buying the land, but it's so greedy with 20 houses. Nobody, who would want 20 houses beside you? To me, I just can't understand. It's all about money, greed, and just piling houses on top of each other. I just, I hate to see it, and I sure do hate to hear 20 lawnmowers going on a Saturday morning early. That will really be a thing. I'll have to start shooting some ducks or something around there in the air so I can pay back. I'm just kidding. But anyway, I just wish that you would really take consideration, and I just really, really would hate to see 20 houses and all the deer and the animals and everything that there will just, I don't know what's going to happen to them. It's really sad. That's all I want to say. Thank you so much, y'all.
And thank you for coming, ma'am. Close the public hearing. Are there any questions? Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
had my light on right now.
First, yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner Dowd.
Russ, if I can get you back, because I'm looking at this, and as she talked about it, zero lot line subdivision, is that how we getting the houses in? I mean, this is a zero lot subdivision. I saw the draft that says for a 20 lot, zero lot line subdivision so that you can build all the way up to the edge. I mean, I'm looking at this draft y'all got, November 17, 2020. R40 residential conditional use zoning draft ordinance related conditions for a 20 lot, 0 acre. This is the one that I think y'all talked to just about everybody, thank goodness, even the fire department who said they wanted to make sure there was a road in there. But is it a zero lot line subdivision?
I believe it is, yes, sir.
And that's how we're gonna pack 20, all of these in here with a zero lot line on this sewer and with no sewer, no water?
Well, the zero lot line just allows flexibility in design. It doesn't mess with the density that you're having to deal with. So whether or not it's zero lot line or not zero lot line, it would be underneath the R40. They would still be allowed the same density of what would be allowed for that particular.
But not all the way to the edge? I mean, is that the zero lot line?
Zero lot line, I guess, just helps you configure the lots in a different way. Yeah, you can look at it that way, Commissioner.
It's like one big one big piece, right?
Yeah, it's like one big sandbox. You're trying to figure out how you can be able to maneuver within your parameters that you got to work with.
I got you. It's a lot of stuff.
Commissioner Booth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. I think maybe Mr. Smith might be the right one, or the two of you. We keep hearing about the trees that are already there. Whose lot is that? You were talking about the trees that are already there? and
I think he's
not
talking
the
about-
junior trees, but the ones that are the full growns.
I think you're talking,
Something about leaving all the trees next to the road or something, but they're not,
Yeah, he
not
said-
4 oak trees, they've got that big around, that's it.
the discussion that was had at the planning board, I believe, was the buffer for up against this R40A. The owner of this lot came out and was speaking about erosion issues backing up to here, and I believe Mr. Evans had talked about it, keeping that buffer for this particular area here, which is on his property. I think the other trees are not.
The trees that they're talking about in flight of the runway is
It's over
the
there.
piece adjacent to our piece, the tall pines.
And
Okay, who is that?
That's the Kane property. That's not on us, that's the Kane property. Okay, that is not on our property. If you will see, ours is cleared there. Okay?
Okay, so I think you called them like junior saplings or junior trees or something, junior growth?
They're at the back of our property, way in the back.
I can't hear you. I'm not, that. You talking to me?
Yeah, I thought you said that they were like junior, there's some you advise people to go left.
Sir, if you come up to the
Yes,
microphone.
excuse, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith, if you come up to the microphone, please.
So those trees that we're talking about, the junior pines, are just below the bottom dashed line at the very bottom of the picture.
Okay. Okay, so
Right here,
they're
this
not on
section.
Butler Nursery Road
Yes,
or
sir.
anything?
Right there. So, and the reason that's important is because if you were to lose an engine and go that direction, and let's say you did touch down and you're sliding and you have to come to a stop, you'd rather hit a flimsy junior pine than a rock-hard, full-grown tree.
Okay.
Those aren't on our property, though. They're not the subject property.
I have one question for you then. Was there any discussion to, instead of just putting one house in that thing, just dropping that whole thing?
We had talked about that through the discussions, but it was discussed.
Because isn't there just one allowed to go in there?
I mean, the way the conditional works is
Or
if
the conditional would allow, after saying we're going to leave one, you actually could trickle in a few backyards or driveways, or, you actually could fill it a little bit. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is there really going to be one home there? Or if it's allowed, like Mr. Keefe said, the whole sandbox?
No, I see what you're talking about. No, like it'd have to be tied to that site plan that we've already been reviewing. So like the site plan shows it as one home, so that's, I hate to say the word, that's the agreement that what gets built on that particular piece of property.
Okay.
Yes, Commissioner Keefe.
Ross, so this is a bit of a checkerboard up here for zoning. A lot of those smaller parcels that do not have a zoning designation in them, what are they?
Are you talking about the ones that are right here?
The green I see everything else is A1 on that side of the street. There's some green across the street, but they're all pretty small parcels. What about all those parcels that are not identified?
These here?
Like the R40A,
Right here?
surrounding it on the other side of Butler, the top part. Yeah,
All
there.
this?
All that stuff surrounding there. What are they zoned?
That would be A1.
Okay, they're still A1.
Yeah.
Okay, well, couple things. First of all, I know what the land use plan, what they reference, but there's not a lot out there that big at R40 right now. Couple things that I remember was if you're digging a hole, when you find yourself in a hole, quit digging. And as Mr. Adams talked about a little bit before. But one of the things I heard loud and clear for a long time with Grace Creek is people out there moved out there because they didn't want to be in an urbanized environment. And I see that coming in here with 20 houses. And I fully acknowledge right now that Mr. Evans could go in there right now and put 10 houses in there that would be different than the surrounding house, and 10 houses would make an impact. But 20 seems like a little much in that area right now, especially with all the concerns going on. it seems to be more rural in nature, and I'm sure that's how most people would like to keep it. Thank you.
Any more questions?
That's fine.
Public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, in the case of P20-43, I move to deny the rezoning request from A1 agricultural to R40 residential conditional use zoning for a 20-lot subdivision and find the request not consistent with the South Central Land Use Plan of 2015. The designation of farmland denial of the request is reasonable and in the public interest. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you, sir. Madam Manager.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I regret to report to you I'm having another technical difficulty. I have noticed that the written agenda differs again with the public hearings. The official record is what's in Novus. So item 4C under Novus is the public hearing and consideration of renaming 4 Marin Road to Copperhead Road, case number SN 0472. Mr. Howard.
Merry Christmas, God bless all.
Thank you.
Pretty straightforward request, Commissioners. We have a request by Mr. Robert Misplay about changing the name of the street out where he lives. I don't have a formal presentation for this, but essentially this is a small little cul-de-sac street that only serves 3 property owners. When we looked at it, he wants to change it from 4 Marin, which I believe was the name of the developer or the development company when he built this. And he wants to change it to Copperhead Road. All of the people that live on the street, we have acknowledgement, as per what's in your packet, say they don't have a problem with the name change.
Now, Rawls, you know what happened on Copperhead Road.
I think that's a song, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Listen to it.
Okay, we open the public hearing. Any speakers?
There are no speakers this evening.
Close the public hearing. Any questions?
I just have one, and the documents that we got was pretty short, but I guess I would ask the attorney, does this have to be advertised to change a road? I know it's only 3 people who live on that road, and they talk to those 3 people, but it deals with, and it's a private road, I guess, but does it have to be advertised? Or was it advertised?
Yes.
It was advertised?
Our staff did all the administrative stuff that was required.
Okay, because that's not in this, it's not in any of these documents that we got that it was advertised or anything.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a letter that this man asked that it be rezoned and property owners.
Okay. We have, our street naming coordinator just retired, and we have a new person filling in, so what we can do is, we can talk with that person about protocol about putting that letter in the future.
Any further questions?
Commissioner Adams, just to answer your question specifically, every public hearing that the Board of Commissioners has to be advertised.
So the public hearing was advertised. Notice to the people who just noticed and then
The paper.
I guess when y'all put the little signs out there that this is about to happen and then the public notice. Yeah. See, none of that was in any of this stuff that we got.
Okay, I can include that in the future, no problem.
What's your pleasure? Call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend approval of the street name change.
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Song that in my head now.
Madam Manager?
Yes, sir. Item 4D, according to Novus agenda, is hold a public hearing and adopt the resolution authorizing the filing of an application for approval of an installment financing contract authorized by North Carolina General Statutes 160A-20, making certain findings required by North Carolina General Statutes 159-51. Our Finance Director, Vicki Evans, presented this item initially to you at the agenda session, and this evening she's going to present to you the findings that will need your consideration this evening.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Evans.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So an update regarding the proposed financing of limited obligation bonds in an amount not expected to exceed $25 million for the county's Emergency Operations Center project and the Fayetteville Technical Community College Fire Training Center project was last provided during the November 16th Board of Commissioners meeting when a call for public hearing was approved. And this is not in my memo, but I do want to say that we did publish a notice of public.
You know I was going to ask that question, right?
We did advertise. And so as a reminder, from the last meeting, the county is planning to help fund the EOC, Emergency Operations Center project, with $15 million in financing and a max contribution of $10 million on the FTCC Fire Training Center project to equal the $25 million that we're planning to finance. In order to proceed with that $25 million financing, a resolution authorizing the filing of an application as well as making certain findings and holding a public hearing is required, and that resolution was attached to the agenda. County management and the finance director are recommending to hold the public hearing and approve the resolution authorizing the filing of an application for approval of installment financing contract authorized by North Carolina General Statutes 160A-20, making certain findings required by North Carolina General Statute 159-151.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Open the public hearing. Are there any speakers?
There are no speakers.
Close the public hearing. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the filing of an application for approval of an installment financing contract authorized by the North Carolina General Statutes, Section 168-20, making the findings required by the North Carolina General Statutes, Section 159-151.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 5.
Item 5A, under items of business, is consideration of designation of voting delegate and an alternate voting delegate for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners 2021 Legislative Goals Virtual Conference. The virtual conference will be held Thursday and Friday, January 14th and 15th. We're required to submit a designee and an alternate by January 11th.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any nominations for the voting delegate?
Yes.
Yes,
I'd like
Commissioner
to
Council.
nominate the chair and the vice chair.
For the voting delegate and alternate voting delegate? For the alternate as well? Chair and the vice chair?
Yes.
Okay.
If that requires a second, I'll second that.
Is there a second? Yes. All in
Thank
favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you, Commissioner Council.
Mr. Chairman, the next item, item number 6, is the board's nominations.
Thank you. And that, our vice chair, Commissioner Adams.
Well, I'll make a nomination because of, but everybody who's under this part, I guess, can make a nomination and then to the appointments. But
Thank
the
you,
Civic
sir.
Center, Ms. Lexi, what's her name?
Lasapis.
There you go. Completed her first term and she's eligible for reappointment, so I would nominate her. If we go to Mid-Carolina, I don't know if there's any other nomination. All right. To the Mid-Carolina Aging Advisory, recommendation to nominate Wilbert Jim Stitt, S-T-I-T-T. And if there are no other nominations, to the Cumberland County Home and Community Care Block Grant Committee, there's 8 vacancies. Recommend Helen Godwin, Francis Collier, Joanne Lockley, Rebecca Campbell, Edna Cogdale, Willie McCoy, Judy Dawkins, and Terry Thomas.
Commissioner Adams, thank you so much for stepping in there with those nominations. Now we have the appointments, sir.
Yes. As to the Board of Adjustment, motion to appoint nominee Mike Downing as an alternate member.
Mr. Vice Chair, we removed
Oh,
that
that's the one
item.
you removed, that's
Yes.
right. I see, I got a line right through that. Thank you there, Mr. Booth. Sometime I go right to the thing. The Transportation Advisory Board, there's 7 vacancies and 7 nominees. Motion to appoint these nominees: Teresine Gardner in the Mental Health Representative category, Michael Rutan, Dorothy Harris, Alina Bailey, and Veronica Pierce in the at-large representative category, Katrina Evans in the MPO representative category, and Kishi Kamalu in the dialysis center representative category. I'd move those for appointment.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Unanimous.
And the Cumberland County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, I would move to appoint the following nominees in their categories. Amy, I think we misspelled her name, Nahas and United Way, or the nonprofit representative category, Dwight Palmer in the member of the business community category, and Gregory L. Davis in the member of the faith community category. Move those appointments.
All in favor?
Second.
I'm sorry, second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all the appointments.
And thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Item number 8 is a closed session for attorney-client matters pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes 143, 318, 11A3.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Unanimous.
We're down in closed session. come out of closed session. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Adjourn.